Well, after last week's battle to keep the government funded, now President Obama is focusing on cutting America's spending. He'll be reaching out to Republicans to try to reduce the deficit while raising the debt ceiling. The ceiling stands at $14.3 trillion, but Secretary Geithner says we're going to smash through that number next month. What can be accomplished? We're joined by a Beltway insider who worked through the last government shutdown and was a senior advisor to President Clinton. We're talking about Mark Penn, who's now the CEO of Burson-Marsteller. Welcome back to In Business, Mark.
Thank you.
How does the president walk this line on Wednesday when he puts forward his new deficit reduction plan of navigating what the Republicans have come out first on, which is cutting entitlements?
Well, he's got a difficult road to navigate because now, rather than a shutdown, when in 1996, really the end of 95, President Clinton made the Republicans look extreme. Now we're starting off with an agreement. So the president can't start off by saying he disavows the agreement. He's got to start off by saying we found some common ground. Now, how do we move forward on the big problems, including entitlement reform and taxation? And so he's got to seem to be able to be driving a process that he's heading and laying out solutions for.
So how does he do that? I mean, we've already gotten a lot of attention paid to Paul Ryan, Congressman, put forward his proposals on how to reduce the deficit in 2012. He's cutting Medicare and Medicaid. He didn't go as far as Social Security. Do you expect the president to talk about that and cutbacks there?
Well, again, very interesting political situation because I think Reid and Schumer have basically signaled Social Security is off the table.
Yeah.
So does that leave Medicare? Does that leave something else? Does the president chart his own course? I think we saw at the end of the year the president charted his own course on taxation, agreeing to keep the Bush tax cuts in place. So the truth of the matter is I think there's a lot of open questions here on what he's going to do. We know he's going to push for raising the government debt ceiling. He's got no choice on that. We know it's been signaled that he's going to call for raising taxes again on the wealthy, and he's signaled that he's going to want to start probably a process, if I were to guess, on what he'd do on entitlement reforms. He frequently refers to the bipartisan process that was held. He tried a process before. The commission, it didn't work. He might try it again. I'm not sure.
Well, when it comes to taxes, I mean, the idea of allowing the Bush tax cuts to expire earlier this year became toxic, not only politically, but, in the marketplace, corporations became concerned about that. How does the president introduce that idea going this much closer to 2012? How do you sell to people that your taxes need to go up while you're also trying to win their vote?
Well, I was surprised that it was raised again on the Sunday shows this weekend because the president, frankly, gets a lot of votes out of those families making over $100,000. He did better than any Democrat. And so his numbers went up when he made the tax deal. I think that he's got to go in not for raising taxes per se, but for tax reform, for trying to create a new system that will be more efficient, that will work better, that will be fairer and simpler. That would be the right way for him to go.
Does introducing that tax discussion in any form, though, complicate what the market views as an immediate deadline, which is hitting the debt ceiling? Treasury Secretary Geithner says we're going to hit it in May.
Well, I think the situation is complicated mostly by what is the government's position on the economy? Is it pumping money into it? Is it cutting spending? What's the response of Wall Street to that? I think that right now we know there's no government shutdown. We're not sitting here today figuring out how we get out of a huge mess. Everybody managed to avert that. That suggests that we're on a more cooperative path here towards either solving the problems or, in many ways, having a conflict over them that is within certain bounds. We know where the battle lines are drawn. I think so. So if you're looking from a question, is there certainty or uncertainty? Well, the uncertainty is where the president's eventually going to go and wind up. The certainty is we avoided a shutdown, and it suggests that means there's some common ground here for the parties to work together.
But you can't go through the kind of brinksmanship that we saw with last week, getting close to, the debt ceiling. That is a much more immediate deadline to the markets than, a few federal offices being closed.
Well, almost by definition, these conflicts always come down to the last few minutes, to the very deadline, because each side wants to get the most that they can get, and they don't want to go back to their supporters and say, hey, we took less than we can get. So it is by nature in Washington, conflict always comes before resolution of conflict. That's going to continue to be the case. Don't expect anything less.